second chance in the game.
What I have learned, 31 years of being a head football coach, I've probably forgotten an awful lot of things, but I've learned a lot of things as well. You see here the picture that this is a t-shirt, the cover of a t-shirt that we brought with me from Savannah. And if you notice, the word team is written much bigger than me, and that is symbolized that the team is much more important than the individual. And every player is given one of these t-shirts, and our day before our game, a Thursday practice for a Friday night game, for example, that is our practice shirt. They have to wear their team me shirt to practice. And I tell them to identify their shirt some sort of way, put the names in it, whatever, because these are valuable t-shirts and have a tendency to disappear. And if you come to practice without your team shirt, you're in trouble. Contact information, if you're interested at some point in time, here it is for you, hermanmv@comcast.net, and my cell phone number, 774-563-8944. How I got to Martha's Vineyard. My word of advice for anybody is don't be afraid to gamble on yourself. I've done that in particular twice in my life, and both times has been very rewarding and very positive. Matter of fact, without the first gamble, there would not have been a second gamble, and that was going on a blind date with who was going to eventually become my wife. Never been on a blind date before, but one thing I can tell you, it worked out for me. Going on that blind date, meeting my wife, actually led to me coming to Martha's Vineyard to coach and live for 28 plus years. I grew up in Savannah, Georgia for 29 years. When I graduated from college, I was hired as an assistant football coach and phys ed teacher at Jenkins High School, where I was there for 4 years, the last 3 being the defensive coordinator. Another high school, Johnson High School, head coaching job became available. The school had not won a game in 2 years prior to that. I had thoughts about not applying, but realized that, hey, if I go there, the only way is to go up. So I took on the challenge. I'm going 1-9 my first year. I went 7-3 my second, 4-6 is my third, and then the position on Martha's Vineyard, which was a 1-year only position. So that was another gamble, actually 3 gambles. That was the second gamble that would take, after the end of my third year of being a head football coach at Johnson, a phys ed position, a 1-year only teaching position, and a head football coaching position came available here. My wife was from Martha's Vineyard, basically. And so we gambled, leaving a house that we had bought in Savannah. We had our first child was born, and my wife was pregnant with our second child. So we packed everything up and left Savannah on what was potentially a 1-year only position. And we've been here ever since. I've helped lead 8 teams to 8 different Super Bowls, winning 5 of them. I've been named to the Boston Globe Coach of the Year, was named there in 2008, which was our last Super Bowl appearance. I've been inducted into the Massachusetts High School Football Coaches Association Hall of Fame back in 2015. And my career as a head coach, I've won 232 games, lost just a little over 100. So I'm very proud of what our teams have been able to accomplish. I credit everything to organization. That is the key. If you are an organized person, and you have to be very anal at this. You have to account for everything that your team does, every minute of practice, everything. You have to be extremely organized of what you want to do. There's no substitute for hard work. It does take time, it does take effort, it takes time away from family. You have to have a very understanding family, especially if you have young children. And that was our situation. We came here. Within 5 years, we had 3 children. And so I was a full-time phys ed teacher. I was a full-time coach, trying to be a dad, a husband. It can be challenging, but if you organize, you can make it work. And I love this statement, this quote: "Hard work beats talent when talent does not work hard." No better statement than that. I think it's important for you to be a leader, and if you have high expectations, you will receive high reward. Plan for the unexpected. I've talked in other DVDs about in your practice, and a play goes bad at practice, don't blow the whistle. Let the play out, because you cannot blow the whistle in a game. It's going to happen in the practice. It's going to happen in a game. If you let it happen in practice, you'll be prepared for what happens in the game. Okay? You want to strive for perfection, knowing that you're never going to get it, but the idea is to strive for it. And keep in mind, you have to adapt. That's where yearly, weekly, even during the game, things are going to occur that you have to be able to change. You may go in with a game plan that you're going to run the ball 30 times a game, or you want to throw the ball. I've had one game where we only threw the ball one time in the game, and that was by mistake. When I say by being organized and practicing, we had a game situation once again on Nantucket. That week going into the game, I'd seen on film, we had a stretch of time during the 2000s and late 90s where we were very, very good special teams team, and we spend time on special teams. We were blocking punts like crazy and returning punts for touchdowns. I saw on film going to this game that we had an opportunity to put a different type of punt block, and if we executed it right, we'd have a chance to be successful. So I told a kid that on that Wednesday of the practice week, going to the Saturday's game, I told a kid named Mike, I said, you're going to block a punt, and EJ, our kicker, is going to kick a game-winning field goal. So we go into this game, and we are losing by 2 points, and it's roughly 2 minutes left to go in the game, and we held them, and Nantucket is now going to punt to us from their 45-yard line. They go to punt. Mike, the kid, blocks the punt, and EJ comes on and kicks a game-winning field goal with 5 seconds left to go in the game. So that practice paid off. This game was affectionately known as the Water Boy game. The youngster in the front row there. We kicked the game-winning field goal with 5 seconds to go. With 5 seconds to go, the ball gets snapped, gets placed on the tee, gets kicked, goes to the uprights, calls good. You look up, you expect the game to be over. There are 3 seconds left on the clock. Keep in mind we're playing on Nantucket. So now we have to kick off to Nantucket, who has already run one kickoff back for a touchdown. So we kick off to them. We go down. Everybody thinks we've made the tackle. The kids fall into the ground. Our sideline pours onto the field in celebration. Look up. All of a sudden, the ball is up in the air. No whistle is blown. So everybody's now running the sprint off the field, except for our water boy. He'd gone off to pick up the kickoff tee. He's running back to the sideline as the second running back for Nantucket is running down our sideline with the football. Did not interfere with the play, but there's a picture of him involved in the play. He's stopping before the run into the kid. We make the tackle, no penalties. We win the ball game on that punt block, extra point. But because the water boy had his picture in the paper, we called that the water boy game. Practice organization, your staff organization, communication of various types, and in bold, be true to you. These are the categories I like to talk about today. In 1995, we had a very long season. We were basically a glorified JV football team. I played a tremendous amount of sophomores and freshmen, and we finished 3-7. We came close to winning 2 other games, but I knew we were going to have a good core of people coming back. One of my duties that year in the high school was I was in school suspension for 1 period every other day. And so I had a lot of time, I had a computer, so I wanted to really evaluate and reevaluate what we were doing in practice. So I ended up breaking down what we were doing into different aspects, different things. I wanted to make sure I was utilizing my coaching staff to their strengths, making sure they felt comfortable with what they were doing. It was very important to account for every minute of practice. We've gone to several colleges and even we've gone to New England Patriots practices. And if you've ever been to those, you see how well run they are. They're to the minute, horns blow off, kids are running from period to period. There's no wasted time. And I wanted to try to get back to that and mimic those type of practices of what we were doing. Drills, skills, and thrills is a quote that a fellow phys ed teacher that I worked with for years, Jay Schofield, used to use. Basically, you drill them, improves their skills. When your skills improved, you're going to have more enjoyment in games, therefore your thrills are going to improve. Another thing we ended up doing was scripting our offense. When we have our practice schedules, I would simply write down exactly the plays I wanted to run in order to make sure that, you go into practice, you don't write things down, you get involved with practice, you forget, you walk off the practice, you go, oh gosh, I forgot to run this play. and sometimes it's too late to run that play. So if you have it written down, you've already pre-thought what you want to do. Very important, script your practices, especially offense. Agility drills, we would do a 10-minute period, but you can, every day, well, at least 3 days a week, we would do agility drills of various stations. We would do special teams. We made a commitment to special teams, and it really won some football games for us over the years. We spend 10 to 20 minutes, depending on the day, on some type of special teams. We'll do on a Monday, we'll do punt return. On Tuesday, we'll do kickoff return, extra point. On Wednesday, if we have a Friday game, we'll take as much time as we need to cover special teams in the practice. And on Thursday, of course, we're going through our game script practice. And so we're doing special teams every single day. It's some phase of it, very important. And if you stress it, the kids will take it to heart as well. If you just give it lip service, the kids will give it lip service. They won't take it seriously either. And that's a huge, important phase of the game if you don't work special teams that you're missing out on. Individual drills you'll see in our practices, and I have some examples here. You'll see in our practices we'll do a lot of individual periods, then we'll do small group, and then we'll do team stuff almost on a daily basis. Only do drills that are going to apply to your game. Don't do drills just to eat up time. Time is precious. Use drills that you can apply in game situations. You either get better or worse, you never stay the same. That's a statement I use over and over and over again, especially on days when our teams were dragging through practice or not working hard at practice. You'll hear me yell out, you either get worse or better, but you're never going to stay the same. Make conditioning a priority. Very important. I don't care if you're 2 platoon, I don't care if you have 50 kids on your varsity, I don't care if you have 30 kids on your varsity. Conditioning your kids, you'll pay off in the long run. If a kid gets injured, if they're well shaped, well conditioned, they'll come back to game method, game performance a lot quicker. Okay? Work on situational football. You don't have to do it every period, but you need to have days in your week that you are going to do specific situations, whether it be red zone offense, red zone defense, goal line defense inside the 5-yard line, goal line offense going out, put the ball on the 1-yard line, and you got to go 99 yards. Okay, because inevitably that's going to happen in a game. You don't want the kids to have the opportunity to be prepared for the situations they're going to face. If they're faced with a situation for the first time in a game, which from time to time will happen because you can't cover everything, you're enhancing your chances of being successful if they've experienced it in practice. And you as a coach need to have peripheral vision. You know, we talk about linebackers having peripheral vision, being able to see out the side of the corner of your eyes. You as a coach, you're focused on your area of practice. You're working with the offensive line. You look up, you need to be able to see what's going on in other areas of the practice field as well, because there have been several times I've been working with my group and I've looked up and I've seen a drill being done wrong or a player executing a fundamental wrong. And they might not be in my group, but because I've looked up, I've been able to see it, make corrections, and there's a proper way to make a correction so that you're not embarrassing or belittling the coach that's in charge of that area. That's very important as well. Basically, our format, we did our stretch, we would do our agility, we do some type of special teams, we always like to do defense first, our conditioning, our break, which was halftime. We like to finish up with offense because that's just the way I like to do it. It worked best for us because offense has a tendency you want to spend a little bit more time because it's a little bit more complicated than defense. I would post our daily practice in the locker room over my office window. So the kids would first thing do when they come to the locker room, they come look at the practice and they say, oh, we got agilities day. Oh, we have conditioning day. And I would spit out there what the conditioning was. So the kids knew ahead what the day was going to look like. And in the locker room, there were chalkboards. And I would write out the weekly times of practice, the weekly obligations of football that the kids would have, what days we were in full pads, what days we were not. If we had an away game, what time the dismissal time from school was, what boat we were on, those types of things. So the kids knew on Sunday what the whole week was going to look like for them. What I have here are some as example of our very first practice on the first day of the season and a breakdown. I liked using 10-minute periods as much as possible. You can see on the first we have a 20-minute stretch and cal. First practice takes a little more time to go over the routine that we would do. And some of the drills we have with the coaches' names attached to them, so they would know what's going on. And here basically just a list of practices. Here's the second day of practice. And what I would do, if we focused on offense one day, we would focus on defense the next. But we would give equal practice time or practices to both offense and defense. At the beginning of the season, we didn't do any special teams the very first week and a half because we were too busy installing things. Plus, we weren't expected to have our scrimmages to do any special teams. When it came to the week 2 weeks before our first game, that's when we would install our special teams because we were going to see some aspect of special teams in our game type scrimmage going into our first game. And these are just practices that you can see. Here's a week-long practice schedule, our last week of the season. On a Monday, what our routine to be, you can see offensive line are doing the circuit. That's the outside circuit we would have. While the linemen are doing that, all the other players were with their coaches in groups, and then we would rotate for 25 minutes on a circuit. Then the people that were not doing the circuit would go to the circuit while the offensive and defensive line would work on technique type stuff. And here's our Tuesday practice, just with the conditioning. I don't think we actually did conditioning the last week of practice that much other than the conditioning circuit. You know, our Wednesday practice, same type thing. You'll see we have a second day of the circuit built in, the offensive line on the circuit. That means that on Thursday, the first period was the backs and receivers would then go to the circuit while the offensive lineman did something else. Once again, you're at the circuit twice a week, the conditioning circuit. Our Friday practice, we go to the game field. We do our specialty period, like we would mimic our pregame stretch cal. We do our pregame work as in for a game, and I have a set script practice that I got off the internet years ago, and it's a set schedule. You run it like a game. Your script practice is just like a game. Your number one kickoff team kicks off. All right, now you stopped them on the 20-yard line. Now your defense is on the field. You scout offense. You run defense until you stop the offense from getting the first down. Then they punt to you. Now you work on your punt return, game situation. Now your offense comes on, and you just mimic a game. And you can coordinate and organize that as much as you want, but it's game condition type of practice before a game. Then we do our last practice ceremony. We had an away game that day, that weekend, so we loaded the bus before we did our dinner and movie. Here's a picture of our last staff, my last year. Hugely important to be very picky about who you have as your assistant coaches. You need people with character and integrity. You want positive people that are good teachers. We have people that are very visible in the community because just myself and one other assistant were actually teachers in the building. Everybody else on my staff was not. So they were police officers, they were counselors, they were retired people, they were highway department people, but they were self-employed, caretakers. But they were former players of mine. But they were people that were very visible in the community. Take good people, teach them your system, and if they're willing to learn and if they're willing to work at it, they can be good coaches for you as well. To me, trust. I had an assistant coach ask one of my longtime assistant coaches, "What's the most important thing to Donald as an assistant?" And his response was, "Once he feels like he can trust you, you're in." And that I mean by trusting that you're going to push the program the way you want it to be pushed. You're going to be on time. You're going to be committed. You're going to coach the way I want you to coach. You're going to be positive. Trust is very important, not only from a coach's standpoint of view, but from a player's point of view as well. And I have to give it too. I have to trust you. You have to trust me. Because we don't have teachers in the building, your coaching staff has to have flexible jobs that allow them to coach. I've been very fortunate because we live in a very restricted area. So the talent pool and the coaching pool is really limited. It's not like you can pick someone from the next 2 or 3 towns over that can spend 30, 40 minutes driving to your school to practice and to coach. That's not the way. We have to take what we have. And I've been very fortunate to have some outstanding assistant coaches over my years because it's not something I can do by myself. If you can develop the same coaching staff, as a matter of fact, in this picture, there of the 5 people standing there, the one in the middle played for me for 4 years. The one on the far right played for me for 4 years. The guy with the hat on, he was a former Vineyard player, and Araujo, a family name. So continuity, the longer you can have your coaches on the staff, the better. And I've been very fortunate to have that too. Coaches coach for long periods of time for me. Let your assistants coach. Don't micromanage. You have your coaches meetings once a week, at least we did on Sunday nights. We go over the game grades, we set the practice plan, set the game plan, let them coach. Obviously, if you're at practice and they're either teaching something wrong or giving the misinformation, there's a right way and a wrong way to correct a coach in front of players. Never, and I say repeat this, never call out a coach in front of kids. You're just setting yourself up for disaster when you do that. You want the kids to treat your assistant coaches as if they treat you, At the end of every year, I would ask my coaches to evaluate themselves, the program, and evaluate me. And I would request that in writing. I'd go over it with them. I just feel like you have to constantly evaluate what's going on in your program if you want to have success. I would print out and give out coaches' duties and hand this out to the coaches. This was the duty list for each of my coaches going into my last year. Literally 2 weeks before the season started, actually more than that, this was not the original coaching staff I had going into this year. I had 3 coaches tell me within the month before practice started they were going to be unable to coach. 2 of them were JV coaches, 1 was a varsity assistant coach. And it was because of family purposes, family reasons, and family does come first. These people were having to leave their jobs, which is going to cost them money, to come coach, which was making 10 cents an hour. So which would you do? If you got a family, you're losing money, you love the game, but you can't afford to do it. So I was very fortunate to be able to find people, of good quality, of good coaches to take their place. But even after I produced this coaching duties, one of my coaches, Sterling Bishop, came to me and told me, Coach, I'm not going to be able to coach this year. So I ended up taking his duties and spreading them out within the existing staff. Balance. You have to have fun. This game can be all-consuming if you don't. It can drive you crazy if you don't. Have some fun. We would have a preseason coaches dinner. Strictly coaches dinner is what it started with years ago. Each coach was responsible for bringing something to the dinner. I usually brought corn because it was cheap. Some coaches brought lobster. Some would bring stuffed quahogs, New England type stuff. And we'd have a good time together before we start practice. We would go to coaches' clinics together as a staff. We'd have monthly coaches meetings. Give your coaches time off. They need time to decompress as well. Our season would end no later than the first weekend in December. That's if we were in the playoffs in the Super Bowl. I would give them 3 or 4 months off. They have other lives as well, other jobs. Some are other coaches, some are basketball coaches, hockey coaches. Give them time off. There's plenty of time to get organized and get going for the next season. And I re-emphasize the word trust. Like I said, most of my staff were non-educators, but if they work for it and you teach them what you want to do, it can work. Reputation. The Purple Pride Night, this is just, we're having fun. The kids are out on their fundraiser, the Purple Pride Night, selling their Purple Pride cards. We as a coaching staff would go to a local restaurant and have dinner together. And my last Purple Pride Night, my last year coaching, I decided I was going to pay. First time in 28 years, I was going to pay for the dinner. And so when I pulled the money out to pay for the dinner, you can see the cameras because they wanted to make sure it was documented that I actually paid. Because I do have a little bit of a reputation for being cheap. But have fun. Be yourself, have fun. Here's a picture of the longtime coach on Nantucket, Vito Capizzo, who retired several years ago. This is a picture taken at last year's football game, which of course I'm retired as well. Clinic breakfast years ago, back in I think it was 2004 or maybe even earlier. Yeah, 1994. Our 2 staffs, even though we're enemies during the season, especially at one game, when the game is over, we're close friends. We have a lot of the same situations, a lot of the same things, experiences to go through. So we'd meet up in America after we get off the island, And we would travel to one specific coach's clinic every year together, and we'd have a good time together. And so it was one morning where 2 or 3 of my assistants and I were having breakfast in the hotel, and the bill came, and I asked if I could charge the bill to my room. And they said, of course. So I did, but it was to Vito's room I charged the bill. And so I was waiting to hear back from him and never did. Like 3 or 4 months later, I get a phone call from Vito. He used to call me the snake. You dang snake, I just got a bill on my MasterCard for over $100 for breakfast. What is this? I said, well, that's what you get for beating us. So he ended up paying for breakfast that year because he beat us. Have some fun, relax, enjoy yourself. Same thing with the coaches. Our in-season meeting agenda would be as follows. We would go to a huddle. It's big. You don't have to worry about the 16 millimeter films, driving out of town, exchanging films anymore, or VHS. Now you can just push a button and it's gone, which is awesome. I would break down the film after our games. I would send it out to the coaches. I send it out to the players as well, as most of you are doing with Huddle nowadays or some other form of with internet. But each coach was expected to at least look at the game film before our Sunday afternoon. We would meet Sunday nights. We would have our Sunday afternoon practice, which is basically, let's just talk about what happened in the game. Let's do our conditioning circuit. Let's stretch. Let's get loose. Let's find out who's injured. So when we go to our coaches' meetings, we were prepared to talk about a depth chart and what we wanted to try to do. A real easy type of practice, but still an important one to have. One of the first things we did, we gave every kid that played a grade for the game. We would do weekly awards. We were very fortunate to have a lot of communities that would donate food. Anytime you give a high school football player food, they like it. So an offensive player of the game might be a free pizza here or a free pizza there, defensive player, that type of thing. Food was always good to give out. But we give out weekly awards. We would discuss our upcoming opponent and what we wanted to try to do differently, if anything, what we didn't want to do. Maybe we're going to cut back on what we were doing offensively and defensively because we felt like we needed to focus more on certain things. We'd talk about the upcoming week's schedule. We'd eat dinner at our coach's house that we'd go to, and we try to have all this done within 2 hours, knowing that it's been a long day. We usually have a 4 o'clock practice, so the coaches leave their houses around 3:30, 3:45, and I try to keep them out past 9 o'clock on a work night the next day. That can be asking a lot. One of the things we also did, because we started meeting at this one specific coach's house on a regular basis, we'd go a little bit early, and we'd actually play as a staff croquet, cornhole, some type of game just to relax and just be men, be a fraternity. It was what, in my opinion, football is, or being a part of football is a fraternity. Communication, whether it be with parents, with the community, but it's critical. And I find that out more and more, especially with the internet and all the social media, that parents want more and more involvement. They want to know what's going on. So what I was doing for years was I developed a very thick packet, and I would mail this out to both. I'd send a copy to the players, and I'd send a copy to the parents as well, because you have some situations where the players may not be living with that specific parent. You've got divorce situations, so you want to make sure both sets of parents have the information for their kids. But in this, I would detail our monthly calendars, starting with our summer weightlifting. We would carry from the summer all the way through to the end of the season. List of events, I would include our contract, our in-season contract for both to sign, our fundraising information about the Touchdown Club. We expected every parent to do some type of involvement with the Touchdown Club, whether it be helping out at team dinners, a JV player working at the Touchdown Club booth during a varsity game, a varsity playing, working at the player's parent working at the Touchdown Club booth during a JV game, some type of involvement, working on a fundraiser, that type of thing. We cover first aid information, how to give them contact with the trainer as well, and then I give them my contact information, but I would also ask them, please don't call me at home unless it's absolutely necessary. I have a life too. Here's an example of the month of October that would be included in the packet with the breakdown of times and meetings, Touchdown Club information, game times, if we had an away game, boat times, that's October, and the same type of thing for the month of November. And this would be included in the packet. Those are just 2 months of the packet. Our contract, and what you see is our chemical health policy and our conduct policy, basically the first three that are of most important. You can see these there. We have a zero tolerance for alcohol and chemical abuse. Verbally and physically abusing, basically no bullying, and treating people properly and the way you want to be treated. And don't steal. I don't care if I'm a player or someone else, don't steal. If you do those three things, you're going to be in trouble with me, big time. Here's the second page of it. I think number 13 is of importance because we have a dress code when we travel away. Kids are expected to wear dress pants, dress shoes, socks, button-down shirt, and a tie. There have been situations where kids don't have these things. I've brought extra ties for kids. It's surprising how many high school students do not know how to tie a tie. So they're learning a life skill. We teach them how to tie ties. But we've experienced that when kids are dressed up, they conduct themselves differently. And they dress up going to games, and they're expected to dress up after games. And I think it's very important. They conduct themselves with class. Our program looks classy. It gets a certain reputation, and I think it's good overall for growth and development. Teacher communication, being in the building as a teacher, I let the teachers know exactly what the expectations are from me as a coach and what our players are. Once our roster is established, I send out an email with all the players' names on them so that teachers can contact me in case of necessary. I ask that if a seating chart is in place in a classroom, that a football player be seated in the first two rows. I don't care if a kid doesn't want to sit there. If he's on a football team and you have a chance, put him in the first two rows. He has less chance of falling asleep or goofing off if he's in the front. If there's an issue with a kid, the teachers are really encouraged to contact me either through email. I'm in the halls, lunch duty. I'm very visible to the teachers. We do have disciplinary actions for academic failure or issues. I do biweekly progress reports. And so basically twice a month, a player is going to walk around with a progress report. I don't care if he's in a study hall or whatever. That teacher's going to sign it, assign, of course, a kid a grade if he has one, and let me know if there's any comment on the conduct of the kid. They bring that back. They have a certain designated time to return those. If they come back and they are in, if a kid has a D in a class, that practice he's going to run 3 gassers. If he has an F in a class, he's going to run 5 gassers. If he's in 2 classes where he's in academic failure or trouble, he's going to go back for extra help before he's allowed to practice. Academics come first, and if he's in class, comes late practice because of academics, no problem. He's expected to do his schoolwork because our grades do come out prior to our last game of the season. And you really don't want to miss the last game of the season for us. That's the most important, the biggest one kids will play in. I will contact parents if there's an issue with academics or with discipline. Usually a lot of times it just takes me face-to-face with the kid, and things have a way of changing. Sometimes you have to get the parent involved. Sometimes the parents want to be involved and should be involved. And I think that's important too. Once again, communication. Here's an example of the progress report. Very simple. The kid takes it around. We have 8 periods in a 2-day school day, 4 per day. So they see A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H periods. So you can see where the teacher has to sign it. They bring their grade, and I tell the kids if there's a grade missing from your schedule, I treat that as a failure. So you'll have 5 gassers. Well, the teacher wasn't here that day. You had 2 days to get this done. Go find that teacher, type of thing. No excuses. I'll talk about community. We live in a very special place on Martha's Vineyard. Very tight-knit community. Every December they have the Christmas in Edgartown, and this is after our 1992, which is our back-to-back Super Bowl championships. Football team was invited to participate in the parade. So we decorated a truck or a dump truck or something, and the kids got to ride in the parade and throw candy and that sort of stuff. We have very high attendance at games, especially night games. We went to lights. The attendance really basically tripled. Touchdown Club is highly supported by the island. We've had a touchdown club shed built by local contractors that donated their time to do so. The employers of our kids start working here at 14. Their summer jobs, it's very rare for a kid not to have a summer job on Martha's Vineyard. And when football starts, they still have their summer job, but their employees know they're athletes. They get their schedule to them in June. I encourage the players to take their football schedule, especially the summer schedule, to their summer bosses and outline the times that they need to be away from work for football. Some kids will, during our morning practice, double sessions, they'll come to practice, they'll go to work, and then come back to practice for the second session. And they're exhausted, but that's life on Martha's Vineyard. I think it's very important to have a feeder program. We don't have Pop Warner here. We just can't field enough kids with the soccer, and hockey starts real big here. So we have a junior high football program which starts in grade 6, and I've been very fortunate to have a very good solid staff with the junior high football. Here's a picture of the island going to a home game. Just kidding. This is, we don't get that many people. This is actually during the street fair in July, the month of July on the Vineyard. Junior high football, they're doing their summer conditioning as well. I think it's important to have your system in place, your terminology in place. They're learning as a 11 or 12-year-old what's going to be down the road for them when they're 15, 16 years old. Okay. We used to have a very easy scheduling system in place. I used to make the schedule for the junior high, but with budget cuts and with the concussion, our kids have gone from an 8-game local schedule down to where there's only one other school on the Cape that has junior high football besides us, because their 8th graders are now maybe playing on their freshman team. They don't have a junior high team. So scheduling for them has become much more of a challenge, but fortunately as of right now, we still have a junior high football program. Kids are encouraged to participate in community service, to give back to the community that supports them so well. Here's a picture of some kids working at a local food bank. We have a couple of electronic disposal days on the island where heavy lifting is needed, so our kids are asked to go and do some heavy lifting for them. Various road races they can do water stations at, we do that, and beach cleanup, especially in the summer. Here's an opportunity for the football team to give back. Back in 1999, an Islander, Richie Madus, when he played for Martha's Vineyard as a junior, he got injured at a football game at Blue Hills, which is in Canton, Massachusetts. He basically ruptured or lanced his liver in a game. It was helicoptered out to Boston, life-threatening. That was as a junior. Everything healed back. He came back and played his senior year. We're about the same age, so we're talking mid-70s. And he was a captain in his senior year. Big family man. He had 2 children, one of which was the same age as my middle child. They went to school together, played soccer together, played sports together in general. He was a shellfish warden in Oak Bluffs for Martha's Vineyard. And back in '99, he was out working, and somehow he fell overboard, had his waders on, and he drowned. And his body was not found for 2 or 3 days, 2 or 3 days later. And his kids were, like I said, young age. One of the girls was a freshman in high school. His oldest was a freshman. His son was in, I believe, the 5th grade at the time. And the community was just devastated. Everybody, I think the whole island came to his funeral. So we decided our next home game, we were going to dedicate the game to Richie. And it just so happened to be that our next home game was against Blue Hills, which was the team he got injured in as a junior. And the game was built as the winner of that game was going to probably go on and win the league. And Blue Hills was very successful. They had a very good running back. And we had enough motivation to begin with, but the Boston Globe gave us a little more because they had a runner. They said that the running back was going to part the Vineyard Sound on a way to a big victory for Blue Hills. So our kids took exception to that. So we go out and we play the game, and we end up winning 35-0. Should have been 34, and that was one of the games I was trying not to throw a pass in. But we had 33-0, and it's late in the 4th quarter. I mean, the game's won. I'm trying not to score any more points, but we end up getting a bad snap on the extra point. So our holder scrambles, one of our quarterback picks up, throws a pass, we get a 2-point conversion, an unintentional 2-point conversion to make the score 35. Now we had asked both of Richie's kids to be honorary captains for the game. So at the coin toss, and then after the game, we're walking out to shake hands, and the moon is really, really poetic. The moon is sitting behind the scoreboard. It's lit up 35-0, a night game. All the stars are out. And someone looked up and said, "Coach, look at the scoreboard." 35. Okay. That was Richie Madus' jersey number. So wearing number 35, a captain on the Vineyard, passing away, we dedicate the game against the team he got injured in. His kids are honorary captains. And by accident, we score 35 points to win the ball game. Kind of eerie. So from that point on, we've also established a memorial award, the Richie Madus Captain Award. So every year we've named captains. At the end of their banquet, they're presented a special plaque, the Richie Madus Award, and we have 2 perpetual plaques in place. One that stays at the school, their names are engraved on a plate each year. Richie gets the Madus Award, and a Christopher Bello Award is also in memorial. One of the last things I really want to talk about is be true to yourself. Kids know when you're trying to be someone you're not. They know, they're smart. If you're trying to be outside of your personality, you have to coach to your personality. I'm a very serious and very organized person, but I will have to have fun. I'll make fun of myself. And I think kids will understand that you're real if you make fun of yourself in front of them. They realize that, hey, don't take yourself so seriously. Know that it cannot be done alone. You have to have assistants who are committed to the program, committed to you, committed to the kids. Hire good coaches, let them coach. If you have rules, enforce them. Don't have rules for the sake of having rules. Enforce them, but always leave yourself a little bit of an out if you need to, which I've talked about before. Whatever you do, do what is best for the team and for the program. Disciplining kids is not the funnest thing you have to do. Suspending kids is not the funnest thing you can do, but sometimes it's what you have to do because you have other kids. If you suspend a 4th or 5th stringer, who cares? You suspend a 2-way starter, a captain, that makes an impression on the kid. Okay? Be a man of your word. If you say something, if this is going to happen if you do this, then do it. Commit yourself. Be a man of your word. We've talked about our 0 tolerance policy. That has been the most difficult thing to enforce over the years because you hate to see a kid who makes a mistake, especially when it comes to you and admits the mistake, because high school kids are going to experiment. They are going to do stupid things, but you expect them to you want them to grow, you want them to be mature, you want them to be of character. Stick to your guns. Be ready for some bad press. I've been written up in the papers before because I've suspended kids off the team for violating some policy, and their parents take exception to that rule. But stick to your guns, no exceptions, be consistent, and you'll have an opportunity to have a good program. And here's what I'm saying, my goal when I first came here, I came from a system that had 14 public and private high schools, very hard to be successful year in and year out. I'd always wanted to be in a situation where it was a 1 high school program, and that's exactly what Martha's Vineyard had. I wanted the school to be respected, not just academically, which we are. We send kids to Ivy League schools every year, but I wanted our football program to be well respected across the state. And we've done that, and even because we're known across the country in a lot of places because of our in-depth alumni. But keys to some success, stress fundamentals, be disciplined, insist that your kids are disciplined, you be disciplined, enforce discipline. Love for everybody. If you have, I don't care if you're first stringer, your last stringer, treat them all the same, love them all. You're going to have adversity. Overcome the adversity, whatever it takes to overcome the adversity. Name on your jersey. I can't tell you how many times kids have asked me, "Coach, can we put our names on the back of our jerseys?" No. You have a name on your jersey. It says Vineyard. That's all you have to worry about. You're representing the Vineyard. When you put that jersey on, you're representing your family, your community, your school, your teammates. Make sure you do that the proper way. And bottomly, quote by Bill Belichick, do your job. Very simply put, you have a job to do, you have a responsibility in the field, in life, in school, do your job, and you'll have a chance. The last thing I think I want to leave with you is family first. This is a picture of my family at my Hall of Fame induction. I would not be there, would not be in the situation without them. I have a very strong, supportive wife. She's not big on athletics. She could care less about it, but she supported me. She supported our kids, and without her, I'd be nowhere. These are our kids. Have priorities. There's a time to be a football coach. There's a time to be a husband. There's a time to be a dad. Make sure you know what those times are and do it, because they are going to be your support system. If you're not having success, people out there in the community are going to start talking about you. I was very fortunate when I had some down years not to wake up and have for sale signs in my front yard. But I always had a family that would support me and encourage me. And what last I want to talk about is don't ever assume anything. And this is not us kicking the extra point, but it's the only picture I could find of someone kicking an extra point. I had a young man one year. He was a senior. He was my backup quarterback. And he was one of the jobs, he was our holder on field goals and extra points. And it was the third or fourth game of the year, and we had scored several touchdowns during the course of our season so far, in which he's been out there holding extra points. And we score a touchdown in a game, and it was about one end zone. So we go out there, and we have a special formation that we spread it out, swinging gate. If it's not covered, we snap the ball, throw a 2-point conversion, or we have plays off of it. If it's covered, we run in, kick the extra point. So we go line to kick the extra point. Everything's executed perfectly. Kick the extra point, it's good, no problem. Next quarter, now we're going the other direction. We score a touchdown. We go out, swing gate, runs in, I look up, my holder is kneeling on the wrong side of the block. His uncle was one of my assistants. In my headset, it's not, what is my player doing? It's, David, what is your nephew doing on the wrong side of the tee? He goes, Coach, I have no idea. I had to call a timeout. Called the kid and said, Michael, why are you kneeling on that side of the tee? He goes, what are you talking about? I said, since when did our kicker become a left-footed kicker? So he said, Coach, we scored a touchdown on that end zone. I was on the right side. When we switched sides, I was supposed to be on the other side of the tee, right? I'm just shaking my head. I can't believe the kid messed up that much. Third or fourth game, we've done this in practice. We've done this in games. A big lesson, never assume. Always make sure you're getting your point across. The kid went out there, executed the extra point, and that was the only time he messed up and lined up on the wrong side. Once again, it's been my pleasure talking to you. I'm Donald Herman. Contact information, hermanmv@comcast.net. Cell phone, you can see it. This was at my last game, when I coached my last game. Unbeknownst to me, some big fatheads showed up at the game, and I'm not the cutest guy to begin with. It looks even worse when I'm that big, but there's your fathead for you.